All right, let's jump right in. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a pretty powerful critique of organized religion. The whole argument we'll be looking at draws this really sharp line between the big, institutional structures and what the source says is the true core message, one of humility and service. So let's get into it. Wow. Okay, so right out of the gate, the source material hits us with this incredibly bold claim. That's a pretty provocative way to start, right? It suggests that from this point of view, the very institutions we think of as being about faith have actually been a source of subjugation, not freedom. So you're probably asking, how? Exactly. Well, the text argues they've been used as tools for domination. That instead of being about spiritual life, they became these instruments for control, even being used to justify what the source calls legalized plunder and robbery, all under the cover of religious authority. And that really brings us to our first major point here, breaking down this critique of religion as a totally man-made system of control. The argument we're about to explore is that the structure itself, well, that's the real problem. Picture a pyramid. That's kind of how the source describes these man-made religious systems. You've got these leaders who put themselves at the very top, looking to reign over everybody else. It's this whole top-down model built on hierarchy and command. Okay, so if that's the big problem the source lays out, what's the answer? This is where things get really interesting because the text makes what it calls a crucial distinction, separating the idea of institutional religion from personal faith. And this slide just lays it all out, crystal clear. Look at the contrast here. On one side, you've got man-made religion, which is described as hierarchical, a tool for ruling. But on the other side, you have true faith, which is defined by humility, by sacrifice, and by this deep desire to serve. The entire argument really pivots on this one fundamental difference. Yeah, and this quote really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The point here isn't to get rid of belief altogether. It's about a massive shift in focus, getting away from the external systems and getting toward an internal mindset of genuine faith. So to make this whole idea of true faith feel a bit more real, not so abstract, the text points to a very specific model, the spirit of Jesus, which is presented as the ultimate example of what service and sacrifice actually look like. And to really get a handle on this spirit, you have to ask a pretty basic question that the text brings up. Who is this model of faith actually for? Who does it put first? And the answer, according to the source, is just so clear. It's all about the marginalized. Not the powerful, not the rich, but orphans, widows, the hungry, the sick, even people on the absolute fringes of society. I mean, it's a complete flip of where you'd normally expect power and attention to be focused. And the attitude that goes along with that focus, it's just as radical. It's not about standing above everyone else and demanding to be treated with respect. Nope. It's about taking the position of the lowest servant and humbly serving from the bottom up. And the source gives us two incredibly powerful, concrete examples of this. First, washing his disciples' feet. I mean, that was a job literally reserved for the lowliest of servants. And second, the ultimate act of sacrifice, offering his life on the cross. These aren't just seen as stories. They're presented as the absolute defining actions of this spirit. So let's be super clear here. The kind of leadership we're talking about is the absolute opposite of some arrogant king. Instead of grabbing power and demanding things from people, this model is all about giving and self-sacrifice. It's about serving from the bottom, not ruling from the top. Okay, so that's the model. But how does this all apply to institutions today? That brings us to our final section, which explores this question through a really interesting concept the source calls the aesthetics of humility. And according to the source, this exact same mix-up between status and service is happening right now. People often misunderstand roles like pastor or deacon as being ranks or privileges, positions where you should expect to be served. But the source claims this is the complete opposite of the spirit of Jesus. So, what's the fix? Well, it's this really cool concept the source introduces, the aesthetics of humility. It's such a great phrase, right? It captures this idea of an active practice, of consciously choosing to lower yourself, to put serving others ahead of being served, to give before you get. And this really just sums it all up, doesn't it? It's about making a choice to follow a different path from the one the world usually pushes on you. It means putting humility before status and actively looking for ways to serve other people. This is what's presented as the real attitude of a true follower. And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. While this source focused on a critique of religion, this tension between service and status, it's everywhere. It's in our jobs, in our communities, in our politics. So, in any group, how do we spot the difference? It's definitely something to think about.